Why is Bitcoin legal here, but not here, despite being the same country?
I just sent Bitcoin in China.
Just don't do anything that disturbs the national security.
When Bitcoin conference Beijing.
When we can do it without going to jail.
It is a hammer to the pro-democracy movement of Hong Kong.
Eight million people live in this vibrant city, a unique crossroads where East meets West. The special administrative region of China operates under the one country, two systems principle. It creates an unusual space for financial innovation and risk. Here, you can trade literal bags of cash for Bitcoin up to $15,000 at a time.
So can I buy $10,000 of Bitcoin?
Just cash.
Just cash?
Use cash or Hong Kong dollar cash
Okay.
for CNY.
Okay, great.
While towering skyscrapers and bustling streets tell the story of a financial hub steeped in Bitcoin history. There are Bitcoin OTC counters, a spot Bitcoin ETF, and a deep history of Bitcoin activity, from OGs like CZ or CZ to ASIC manufacturers like Bitmain or the Billionaire Jihan Wu, to exchanges like BTC China.
They did accept Bitcoin for cloud computing.
No, like 2013 or something.
Yeah, 2013 or something like that. But then they stopped because of the Chinese parties that came in and was like, this isn't so cool, guys.
And recently, Hong Kong hosted its first ever Bitcoin conference that I spoke at. And yet, Hong Kong is under Beijing's watchful eye. Beijing's influence continues to grow in the city, restricting freedoms Hong Kongers grew up with and cherish. Which begs the question, can a freedom technology like Bitcoin really thrive in this region? I travelled to Hong Kong to investigate, and I even hopped on a train to mainland China to explore firsthand just how illegal Bitcoin is there.
I just sent Bitcoin in China. This is Bitcoin in Hong Kong. This is Bitcoin Asia. It's Hong Kong's biggest ever Bitcoin conference. We're going to investigate what Hong Kong is doing about Bitcoin and how much Hong Kong can achieve with China behind it.
Just need to not get arrested.
But before we can really understand Hong Kong and the Bitcoin context there today, we need to grasp that the history of Bitcoin and Hong Kong are intertwined. Now, Hong Kong is an OG Bitcoin destination. The island was a key location during the block size war, a pivotal moment in Bitcoin's development which focused on how to scale Bitcoin securely. If you are curious about Bitcoin or the block size war, then please check out planb.network, my show sponsor. Plan B Network is a free-to-use, Bitcoin-only resource, and there are sections dedicated to understanding the scaling debate known as the block size war. Okay, back to the video. Since 2012, pretty OG, the Bitcoin Association of Hong Kong has advocated for Bitcoin among the skyscrapers, using guerrilla tactics such as the Bitcoin tram, even parking it in front of HSBC. Arthur Hayes, crypto OG, famously traded sacks of Bitcoin for cash by crossing the border to China. He would hop from Hong Kong to Shenzhen by bus, withdraw the money, and return with it stuffed in his backpack. During one of several border crossings, Hong Kong authorities detained Arthur as part of an investigation into a suspicious Bitcoin transaction. Hayes managed to convince the officials that he was a victim in the deal too, and they let him go. True story.
Hong Kong is one small part of a bigger story. You had a good few years where the regulators were very slow. So you had this good few years where it was basically unregulated and you could do whatever you wanted. And I actually thought things worked out pretty well.
Baidu is like the search engine.
Yep.
They were actually one of the first to accept Bitcoin for their services. They did accept Bitcoin for cloud computing.
No, like 2013 or something.
Yeah, 2013 or something like that. But then they stopped because of the Chinese parties that came in and was like, this isn't so cool, guys.
Since then, the scene has somewhat matured. Regulators are moving in, and especially with this Bitcoin ETF, it's drawing a lot of attention and some heat.
Specifically in Hong Kong, you just saw the approval of the Bitcoin ETF. It's a special moment in time where, the policy position of China is changing, Bitcoin is booming, and we can bring the mission of hyper-Bitcoinization to arguably the biggest market in the world, the fastest growing market in the world.
This spot Bitcoin ETF has opened the floodgates, but for businesses, it's still murky.
In Hong Kong, it's a great area because the legal system do not ban OTC exchanges in Hong Kong. Recently, the regulator proposed some rules for the OTC exchanges to follow, so they will issue license for those OTC exchanges if they want to operate in Hong Kong.
Bitcoin is just fundamentally new technology that's revolutionary. But the problem is not the new technology. The problem is making it work with the old system.
Nothing illustrates this grey area better than the OTC or over-the-counter desks found in shopping centres and shopping malls.
We're going to go up to one of these places, an OTC desk, and see if we can exchange Hong Kong dollars or even US dollars for the hardest money known to mankind. You cannot do this in the UK, the US, or Europe. It's something very specific to Hong Kong. I'm really excited to see how it goes. Come on. I want to buy $10,000 of Bitcoin.
Okay. Sorry. I mean, I want to buy some anyway. I'd like to buy 100 Hong Kong dollars of Bitcoin. Is that okay? Yeah. Is that too small or is that okay? A2GYH. Yeah, that's all correct. There you go. And as you can see, we're all good to go. So yes, I confirm.
Despite the blurred boundaries surrounding Bitcoin in Hong Kong, it's still possible to buy Bitcoin with cash. No KYC, no questions asked. I mean, I think they did ask me for a mobile number, but it didn't matter because my phone number didn't work there.
You're not supposed to be able to trade yuan, renminbi, for Bitcoin. And that's why you don't see, if you look up like public pairings, you won't see a public CNY BTC pairing.
Okay.
Because there's no exchange that will openly admit that they're doing that.
There is a strong contingent of Bitcoiners here. Hong Kong being a financial center, it is forward thinking. There are ambitious people, open-minded people here who embrace stuff like Bitcoin.
But this isn't freedom guaranteed. OTC desks have faced crackdown, and there were actually police line stickers covering up some of the boarded up shops that stood next to ones that were still operating.
What these guys were doing was not okay. It used to be over-the-counter trading, but this one and this one are still going.
This visual metaphor and delicate balance mirrors Hong Kong's larger Bitcoin story.
Many merchants accept Bitcoin, but in Hong Kong, there are not many. I mean, virtually no merchant in Hong Kong accept Bitcoin.
Now, I always check BTC Map before I travel. I was excited to finally use Bitcoin in Hong Kong, and so I opened up BTC Map on the website, or you can even download the app and check for yourself. But spoiler alert, I actually ended up paying with MasterCard in Hong Kong because it turns out that merchant adoption of Bitcoin isn't quite what it seems.
So see if we can buy a peach iced tea with Bitcoin in a very normal, this is like a Walmart or like a Tesco's, or they sell everything here, food and also household appliances. Oh, so that's Tether. Do you have Bitcoin as well? BTC? Yeah, okay. Can I see the rest? That might be Lightning. But it shouldn't be scanning. I need to scan it. So The way in which the point of sale device had been set up was such that it could only scan QR invoices, so they need to reconfigure the POS, or I'm doing something very wrong, which is also very plausible.
Bitcoin's development globally is partially due to and thanks to the work of Hong Kongers. They pushed it closer to the mainstream during the block size war. But the city is almost this strange dichotomy. It promotes BTC, and yet it runs on cash-filled rucksacks. Even here, there is a one country, two systems approach to Bitcoin. The past and the future coexist. There was a real buzz about Hong Kong's first ever international Bitcoin conference. I say Bitcoin because it was very crypto heavy and it was really quite speculative.
Let's talk about when crypto was very hot before China banned 2017, 18. I think it accounts for maybe 70%, 80% of the whole trading of exchange. Really, Wow. So I think for Chinese people, Hong Kong people, Asia people, embrace this kind of new stuff. But I think ultimately, what is the best asset?
There is no second best. There is no second best crypto asset. There's a crypto asset, it's called Bitcoin, right?
I documented the speculative and frankly scammer elements to Hong Kong in another video on my channel. But it's fair to say that for every scammer, there's certainly a handful of hardcore members of the Bitcoin community who sort of underpin this monetary revolution.
Hong Kong is just one part of this general struggle between like the new finance and the old finance.
Specifically in Hong Kong, you just saw the approval of the Bitcoin ETF, which is like a big milestone for this market. And it really is a sign of capitulation from the Chinese government that they can't stop Bitcoin. So the best thing to do is to enable it in a way that they can ring fence and they can try to get their arms around.
While interacting with BTC Asia conference goers, taking in all the hype, as well as demonstrating Bitcoin to people for the first time. Nice, so I just sent you Bitcoin, like this. I couldn't help but wonder how we were investigating and advocating for a new form of money in a place under Beijing's sights. Just 20 miles away, Bitcoin as money is still illegal.
So when Bitcoin conference Beijing?
When we can do it without going to jail.
I think the mindset for China government for inland is stability, social stability.
Right.
You have to think about in this way. For example, like they ban children playing the video game for certain hour. This is same mindset. You can play, but maybe limited to 1 week, 5 hours, something like that. It's the same. Wow. You have the social stable first.
We can see that Bitcoin's future in Hong Kong is not guaranteed. In 2019, Hong Kong erupted in protests over Beijing's growing influence due to a proposed extradition bill. Millions marched demanding democracy, autonomy, and freedom from Beijing. Resistors were punished. Tear gas filled the streets, and the government imposed sweeping measures to silence dissent through a new bill, the National Security Law. Freedom advocates, such as Chinese-born Hong Konger business magnate Jimmy Lai, were jailed.
The Hong Kong government passed the National Security Law. And in doing so, quashed all dissent. It is a hammer to the pro-democracy movement of Hong Kong.
China's proposed introduction of extradition laws undermined Hong Kong values of freedom, be it freedom of speech or freedom of love and democracy. Jimmy Lai was sent to jail, where he remains for his pro-democracy activism.
A lot of people felt that Hong Kong wasn't as free as it was before since then, and some people have chosen to leave as a result.
These events were a message from the CCP. They were a stark reminder of just how easily freedoms can be curtailed in Hong Kong, a place that prides itself on being a global financial hub and the freest lands of China. Now, consider Bitcoin. As a tool for financial freedom and resistance against centralized control, Bitcoin embodies the very principles that fueled these protests. And in a city where freedoms can be revoked overnight, can Hong Kong keep the Bitcoin dream alive? Could the same authorities that crack down on protesters turn their attention to Bitcoin if it grows too powerful?
It's day 2 of the Bitcoin conference in Hong Kong. It's really interesting because before coming here, I thought this video would follow the line of how can Hong Kong effectively adopt Bitcoin, knowing that China and its influence over Hong Kong seems to be getting stronger and stronger. However, the reality off the back of the interviews yesterday is that it seems that China is allowing Hong Kong to test the Bitcoin stuff, see how it goes, and if it is successful, maybe it'll adopt it itself.
I spent the day conducting interviews, and ultimately I realized that I needed to go to China to see how things compare.
If I go to China tomorrow, how is it going to compare?
No, you cannot pay by Bitcoin unless it's peer-to-peer. It's with someone you know.
Maybe don't say like, hey, we're trying to like, you know,
subvert
the state.
I met with a local Chinese lady to test peer-to-peer Bitcoin transactions. To my surprise, both on-chain and Lightning worked flawlessly.
I just sent Bitcoin in China to myself, but still. So you can use Bitcoin in China, even though it's illegal.
This in a country where censorship is everywhere. BBC is blocked, Facebook is inaccessible. Oh no. The great Chinese firewall looms. It was quite a sharp contrast that underscored Bitcoin's power to operate beyond traditional controls.
But even despite all that, there's still Bitcoin mining that's happening. Now, how much of the global hash rate is in China? You know, how much does Bitmain and, you know, control this whole process? These are questions that are somewhat difficult to answer from a quantitative standpoint.
I will do a short video about this day where I went to mainland China to try out Bitcoin. So please do subscribe to check that out and hit the like button while you're there. It really means a lot.
What I saw in China wasn't mass adoption. It was quiet resilience, silent miners, unspoken trades. A currency that cannot be stopped.
Hong Kong's Bitcoin freedoms exist because of its role as China's financial sandbox. The Bitcoin tram parked outside the banks of Hong Kong is of course a symbolic act of defiance, but it also highlights the city's unique position. It's allowed to innovate with these sort of limits or guardrails in place, so long as it benefits the mainland and crucially, as Jack Lee mentions, it has to remain stable. This creates opportunities for Bitcoin to thrive and Bitcoin projects therein, but it's also quite a grey area.
This is an experiment. This is, you know, the beginning of a process of opening up a billion-plus person market for Bitcoin.
Hong Kong is where like different systems kind of interact, and the Chinese government actually realizes that this is absolutely vital for the future of China.
If you're using Bitcoin in a way that threatens the yuan, or if you're using Bitcoin in a way so that you can escape the capital controls, you know, China's government does care about that. But I don't think they care as much about Chinese companies making money from anything, right?
So long as Bitcoin helps Chinese firms thrive and doesn't undermine currency control, it gets a pass. But if it ever threatens Beijing's grip on money, the experiment could end overnight.
I was beginning to wonder whether Hong Kong's experimentation with Bitcoin was in fact a deliberate move from the mainland.
The more that other countries crack down on things like Bitcoin, the more that the countries that don't do that stand out.
Classic government, what they say and what they mean are two different things. They are fulfilling the policy agenda of the mainland by doing this action. So the mainland is telling them to do this.
While we're trying to figure out how things work in the mainland, okay, Hong Kong's the place to be. Just don't do anything that disturbs like the national security and they'll be fine. I'm the type of person that's excited by the fact that I don't know what's going to happen next. Sort of minimal state intervention in Hong Kong so that we have the maximum ability to just try new things.
Is the question still, can Hong Kong keep the Bitcoin dream alive? Maybe the mainland is allowing Hong Kong to experiment to roll out more Bitcoin projects in the future. With Hong Kong's rich history, unique position, and community of innovators, it has every reason to succeed as a financial hub in Bitcoin. But, as the 2019 protest demonstrated, freedoms in Hong Kong can be quashed, and Bitcoin could be relegated to the shadows. Which is not always a bad thing, because Bitcoin does tend to thrive in the dark. For now, my take is that Hong Kong remains China's incubator of ideas, technologies, and finance, as it has done historically. And hopefully it will continue to be that way for Bitcoin too. Over the course of this video, we've seen that Hong Kongers are innovative, and yet they use bags of cash because that's how the system works. However, when change is needed, they modernize and adapt faster than almost anywhere else. Just look at how they won the block size war. I think ultimately the fear of CCP encirclement might compel Bitcoin and its community to move faster and further in Hong Kong than anywhere else. The drive for innovation is not just a competitive advantage, it's a survival imperative. Bitcoin will survive here, because it has to. To support my investigations, please send Bitcoin to the QR code above. To send me bags of cash, my DMs are of course open, and please do hit the link above for another deep dive into Bitcoin in the real world. Cheers.